welcome. I'm Nira Berry, your host of Happy and Healthy, where we explore and discover all the different ways of keeping you feeling healthy and happy. And remember to stay to the end to watch my Good to Know segment, where as a life coach, I've always got something good to share that's good to know. So today, we're going to learn lots of tips and tricks and a lot of great information about eating well for optimal health. So please welcome my guest today, Nina El-Chebli.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So Nina, you're a registered dietitian and in-store nutritionist with Giant Food.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell me about it. Like, how did you get into that, and what inspired you about it?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in a pretty large family. I have a Persian background, and a lot of our family gatherings were surrounded by food. And so, what's not to love about that?
Yeah.
And so
we all love to eat.
Exactly. And so, a lot about those gatherings, in regards to the food, it really signified love and family and happiness. And when it came to me picking a profession, I was like, what other job or profession would I enjoy more than talking about food and helping people to love food and really bring people together? So that's really why I kind of wanted to be somewhere in the community setting, because that's where I feel like I can share my love of food with people around me and help prevent the onset of disease at the same time.
Well, so let me ask you, what are some concerns that people come to you with about eating healthy?
It's a lot. There's so many concerns. I think probably one of the number one concerns I hear a lot about is that it's very expensive to eat healthy, or I don't have the time to eat healthy.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, so those are probably number two, and two things that I hear. And one thing I'll probably be talking about a lot is the importance of planning, because planning really does go a long way. And so we want to plan what we're going to have throughout the week, just like you plan your schedule for work, you plan your schedule for errands, so on and so forth. The same thing we want to do with our health. We want to make it part of our routine.
So if a lot of people say, like, well, I feel like I can't eat what I enjoy.
Right.
Like, is that a misconception?
As far as eating what you can enjoy, yeah, it sort of is a misconception. And I'm going to tell you why. Because, as a dietitian, we really have an uphill challenge in regards to what people are finding on the internet, So there's so many fad diets and trendy diets that people are just Googling. And, when people come to me to talk to me about how to eat better, I feel like I have to kind of guide them in the right direction. Because as a dietitian, we're giving you the most up-to-date, scientific, evidence-based information versus the things that people are finding online may not even be credible. Who's actually given this information, or maybe they're giving you false promises of losing 25 or 30 pounds in a matter of just a couple of weeks,
Yeah,
So,
I see that a lot.
Yeah, so the challenge really is trying to guide people in the right direction to lose weight or eat better for optimal health without, any crazy strings attached or false hope, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so to answer your question, really, it's not hard to eat healthy, and you certainly don't have to eliminate foods that you enjoy on a healthier diet, but you can enjoy things in moderation, for sure.
Yeah. Like, can you give me an example of that?
Absolutely. So, for instance, a lot of people like to eat chocolate. If you enjoy chocolate, you can certainly have a piece of chocolate every day if you want after dinner.
Oh, I'm sure a lot of people will be very happy to hear that.
Yeah, but you just don't want to have the entire bar of chocolate, or you don't want to have the entire tub of ice cream. Same thing with ice cream. You can enjoy a little bit of the real thing and just do it in moderation and still fit it into a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, well, that's good advice. So, okay. So, what are the challenges that people face, like when they go, let's say, to a grocery store, and there's just so much there, and so what are some challenges and maybe give some examples of that?
Of course. So, one of the things that I do as a retail dietitian, nutritionist, is really help people to navigate the aisles of the supermarket, because there are so many different products out there that people oftentimes are confused what to buy, what not to buy.
There are so many products. I mean, it's like a little mini city.
It really is.
And I know like some people actually use it as a whole excursion just to go through all the aisles.
Exactly. And that's why, once again, you want to have a plan, because if you don't have a plan, you will be on a mini excursion throughout the entire store buying just a bunch of different things. So if you're trying to eat healthy, you want to have a plan. You want to have an idea of, okay, what aisles am I going to hit? But in terms of challenges in the store, you'll see products that have things like low fat or and automatically might think, okay, it says low fat, it's healthier for us. Not always, okay, and I'll get to that in a second. But when you're going to a store, you want to have a plan. You want to make a list. Ultimately, you don't want to go to the store.
Make a plan, a list, okay.
Have a list, right? Because the list will also help you stay on budget, okay? But when you have a plan, you make a list, and you have an idea of some of the things you want to purchase for a week's worth of meals. You're more likely to, avoid falling into those pitfalls or some of those products that you may not necessarily want to be eating on a weight loss or healthier journey.
So what would be some of those products that we may not want to on our health journey?
Yeah, so some of those things would be foods that are sugar laden. They have a lot of hidden sugars in them, or salt, for instance. So 70% or so of Americans' diet in terms of salt is not coming from the salt shaker. It's really coming from packaged processed foods that are on the shelves.
Are there any like surprise foods that people don't realize has a lot of salt in
I would
it?
say, if you're thinking surprise, typically, some frozen foods, okay, even frozen vegetables might have some hidden salts, especially those that come with added sauces.
Oh, yeah.
Sugars, they're everywhere. They're in things that you wouldn't think they would be in, such as peanut butter. They're in pasta sauces, for instance. So one of the things I do with folks is I do label reading. And label reading is so crucial. And I know one of the biggest things I hear from folks is, I don't have time. I just want to get into the grocery store, buy everything I need, and get out of there. So what I teach people is just looking at the basics of label reading, how to glance at a label and just quickly evaluate the healthfulness of it. So many labels now actually have added sugars listed on there, and you can see what is an added sugar.
So not just, because sometimes there's natural sugars, like if it's like a fruit or something.
Exactly.
So it actually says added sugar. That's good to know.
Yes. So not all of the products have switched to the new food label as of yet, but that's what they're moving towards. So really by 2018, a lot of products will then be showing added sugars, but you may already see that on some of the labels. Yeah. But you're right. So fruits are natural sugars. Dairy has natural sugar in it. But if you see in the ingredient list, cane sugar, high fructose corn syrup, for instance, even if it says organic brown rice syrup, that's just a fancy word for added sugar.
So those are like code names,
right.
Sugar. Like I know, is it like another one is maybe dextrose? Is that?
Dextrose is another one, right. So, the point is the food labels, they can't lie to you, but you do also want to just have a little bit more awareness of the foods that you are putting in your body, and that's what I help customers with, is label reading portion of it, how to kind of glance at the labels, see what are some of these additions that you may not necessarily want to be eating. And, the less ingredients, the better. So if you can identify, for the most part, what most of the ingredients are, and it's not that many ingredients on the package, you're better off.
Yeah.
Okay. Or what I also tell folks is, if you really don't want to fall into a lot of these pitfalls, or you find that label reading is confusing, stick to the outside of the store, the perimeter, where you're going to find more of those whole foods, the ones that are not so processed or prepackaged.
Yeah, that's what I've heard, that actually just go, and instead of walking into the middle, just walk around the outside, because that's where the vegetables
exactly.
and the eggs and
exactly.
That's where you'll find that. And the inside, it's all the processed stuff.
Yeah,
mostly.
And I mean, it's not to say that you can't find nutritious or healthy items in the inner aisles of the store. You certainly can. You just want to be a little bit more aware. But when you're shopping on the perimeter, you're going to get more of the fresh items, like the produce. And the USDA My Plate actually recommends that half of our plate be should include fresh produce, so fruits, vegetables. We want to have that at every meal and with all of our snacks. So if we can do that, we're on our way already to a better diet. And then of course, when you're focusing on your proteins, we want to do more of our lean meats. Okay, that's also another thing that the My Plate is highlighting, emphasizing. And then we want to focus on more of our lower fat dairy items as well.
Oh, that's really good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know, like, it's very tempting to go into the middle and get all those goodies.
Sure.
So I know a lot of people that are on a tight budget, and they say that eating healthy is really difficult for them. And so, do you have any recommendations?
Absolutely. Yeah, we hear this a lot, that eating healthy has to be expensive, or I can't afford it, and that certainly doesn't have to be the case at all. So what I usually encourage folks is, if you're going to a specific store, sign up with the store's bonus card or loyalty card. That's how you're going to save some money right off the bat. Okay, you may also want to take a look at the store's circular, okay, because that will also have some weekly deals. So you can clip coupons from that as well. You can even load some of the coupons onto the store's loyalty card, so that when you do get to the checkout register, all of those coupons will also add up.
And you do that online?
You could do that online.
Great.
Yeah, you can do it online. Another thing I would also
easier.
Yeah, basically, yeah, everything is online these days,
Yeah.
so why not? And again, you're planning before you go to the store so that you can get the discount. There goes the planning part of it again.
Yeah.
Another thing you can do is also shop in season. So a lot of folks forget about this, especially when it comes to your fresh produce, because again, remember, we want to really focus on making a lot of our meals, primarily produce. So when you're buying produce seasonally, you're going to get the better bang for the buck. So right now, for example, berries, they're in season. So not only are they're going to taste better, they're going to be more fresh, but they're priced really, really well. Just as oranges, for example, are going to be in season during the fall time.
Yeah.
So, again, with the label reading, when I go over that with some clients that I meet with, they're just floored with how much more confidence they have the next time they go shopping.
Yeah.
We may go out to eat a couple times a week or so, but for the most part, the grocery store really is the key place where you're making all these decisions around food. So some folks that I talk to, they'll tell me that, wow, after meeting with you, I have just so much of a better understanding what to buy. I can...
Wow, well, that sounds so great. So I want to hear more about this.
Yes.
So we're going to just take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to continue learning about all this great information about eating well for optimal health. So I'm Nira Berry, and this is Happy and Healthy. Hi, welcome back. I'm Nira Berry, your host of Happy and Healthy. And we're speaking with Nina El-Chebli. She's a nutritionist and registered dietitian. So thank you so much for being here again. And let's continue. You were giving an example of somebody that you work with?
Yeah, so in regards to label reading, again, people have so much confusion over selecting foods that are healthy and appropriate with, their diet that they've been instructed by their physician. So I had one particular client who was following a low sodium diet. And for the longest time, she thought she was selecting the right foods. She was buying specific frozen foods and some sauces, some dressings, and we took her around the store. We were talking about some of these products, and we came across the product she was using. And after my label reading advice, she was the one who was actually identifying the high sodium options and was like floored by how much salt was in these products that she was enjoying on a regular basis. So the trick really is, in regards to sodium, if you're looking at the daily value percentage, if it says 20% or more of sodium per serving, that's how you know it's rather high.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. 20% more, okay.
That's a really quick and easy way to see if the product you're getting is quite high.
And also, there's like a little trick about looking at how many servings, because sometimes you think, oh, this is one serving, and this sounds like it's going to be delicious, and then you look at it, and it's actually 3 servings.
Exactly.
Like,
and then you eat the whole thing,
and then
you have to actually triple or quadruple everything that's on the label. Exactly.
Yeah,
So
they're very sneaky like that sometimes.
They're sneaky, so they don't lie,
Yeah.
but they're sneaky. And you know, I had another client too who was really trying to watch her fat intake, and she said to me, you know, Nina, I can't give up my Skippy peanut butter. I just can't give it up. And I said, okay, you know, that's fine. Let's go and take a look at it. And so we found out together that it did have a little bit of trans fat in the peanut butter, and trans fat is a type of fat that we don't want to be eating much of it at all.
And is it added into the peanut butter?
It's added into the peanut butter. And peanut butter typically has, it's considered what we call a good fat. It's a heart-healthy fat because it's a plant-based fat, okay? And so we noticed that in the ingredient list, it contained hydrogenated vegetable oil, which is just another term for trans fat. So after our label reading discussion, she was, again, more aware of what she was putting into her body. And so we discussed other options that would still be healthy for her. Yeah.
And I think you mentioned when I spoke with you earlier about how somebody really made a difference in their health by you know, learning a little bit.
Yeah, it was, I mean, we were just floored by this man's results. So he attended one of our diabetes classes that I offered with a pharmacist, and he was diabetic, and his A1C was, you know, quite high. Blood sugars were a little bit out of control, but after the class, he followed some of the recommendations that we provided, such as recommendations from the USDA MyPlate, and just better eating plan overall. His A1C dropped 2 points, so his diabetes was more controlled, and he lost about 17 pounds since the class, which was in April.
So it was like how many months, you know?
So it was about 3 months after the class, he dropped the weight.
So just by following your advice about
just by following the advice.
At the label.
Exactly, looking at the label, better eating practices, and his doctor even recommended that he try being off his medication for a 3-month trial period because he did so well. It's amazing. Yeah, just what a couple changes will do.
So you can really transform your life by just eating well and knowing what to eat. So, so give us like some quick tips, like, you know, that, you know, somebody can just really improve their you know, their life. Really, it's such a basic thing. I mean, we eat a lot during the day, you know, 3 basic meals and snacks and all that. A lot of it goes into our body and may not be the right thing. So what are some quick tips that we can follow?
So quick tips, one, you want to be aware, you want to be more mindful of what it is that you're doing. And if you do want to set a goal, you want to ask yourself the why question, okay? And what I mean by that is, why do you want to lose the weight? Or why do I want to start a healthier eating plan? Because if you really dig deep and ask yourself this question, you find the real reason that's motivating you to make a change, okay? So if we just say, you know, I'm going to lose weight for a party that I'm going to in a month, you know, maybe you might lose a little bit, but long term, what is the reason that's motivating you? So that's number one. Number two, you really...
I do that when I work as a life coach. You're really helping people find their motivation, because it's really true. Sometimes if they do it for somebody else, they may not really have the motivation to continue with it. They need to find like their reason. And so, yeah, that I can really see that as being important.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example. You know, with a client that I sat down with, I asked him, you know, what is your motivation? And for him, it was to be able to keep up with his grandchildren. You know, and he's like, my grandkids are everything to me. They look up to me, and I want to be healthy for them. And so that's his driving force. You know, that's what's going to keep him with his goals, and just, you know, encourage him to continue to make healthier decisions. The other thing is, you really want to set some SMART goals for yourself. And what I mean by that, the goals should be specific, they should be measurable, they should be attainable, realistic, and timely. So
you'll stick with it.
So you'll stick with it. Yeah. So an example like that would be, you know, I want to eat better. That's not really a very specific goal, because I want to eat better can mean something different for everybody, right? So instead, you may want to say, I'm going to start including fresh fruits and vegetables into my eating plan 5 days a week. And I'm going to start with lunch and dinner. Okay, so that's like a more specific goal.
I see.
You know, or I'm going to start exercising 3 times per week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for 30 minutes on a stationary bike.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing you say is just as specific as possible, then it's easier to follow.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because then we can measure it, and
Yeah.
you know, it's human nature. If we don't achieve a goal and it's unrealistic, what happens? We typically fall back on our old habits, right? So you really want to make an attainable goal that's realistic, and that's why I typically set short-term goals with people that I talk to, and then we achieve that first, and then we keep going and set another goal.
Yeah, and I know something else that you mentioned was about keeping a food journal.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a huge one. Yeah, studies actually show that when you're writing things down, or nowadays they have some online trackers that you can use and apps. When you're keeping track of the food that you're eating, again, it's bringing about more awareness. And when we're more aware of what we're eating, we're more likely to stick to those goals as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned mindful eating, and I know that in my training, it was really obvious that if you really paid attention to what you were eating, and I know this with me, if I'm really paying attention to every bite I'm taking of a specific food, it seems like I feel fuller sooner, and I realize that, okay, I'm eating, you know?
Right. Yeah, in our society today, the reality is we have so many distractions. We have our phones, TV, you know, we're
People
eating
in
when
the car.
we're eating when we're driving, we're eating while we're working, so we're not paying attention to what we're eating or putting in our body. So what you really want to do is, again, plan out what you're going to do for the week. You want to also savor every bite. So, you know, put your fork down in between bites, really enjoy what you're eating. And actually studies show that when you're eating from a bigger plate, we tend to really eat a lot more calories.
Yeah, I've heard that you take a smaller plate, like take like the salad plate instead of the dinner plate. And it'll visually, for your eyes, it'll look like you're eating more.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's amazing how that works.
It is. It's psychological. You know, we eat with our eyes, and then if you were raised to clean your plate, you know, that's another factor.
Is that a big no-no still?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if it's all vegetables, you know, that's not a story.
Yeah.
But you know, if you're raised with that mentality where you have to clean your plate, you're gonna fall into that pitfall again of.
Like, even if you're full, you may not realize that that's an important signal that you're getting.
Especially if you're eating too quickly and not paying attention, because it does usually take our body or stomach about 20 minutes to tell our brain that it's full. So if we're rushing through a meal, not savoring every bite, putting a fork down in between meals, you know, we're rushing from place to place, it's very easy for us to overdo it and overindulge.
So when you say like put your fork down like between bites,
yeah,
you put your fork down?
Yeah, so you know, when you're sitting with friends, you know, enjoy your meal. You don't want to rush through it.
So not just like chowing down.
Exactly. Yeah, and actually,
like some people I know.
Yeah, and actually there was a very interesting study that said that actually the first couple of bites taste the best. And every subsequent bite after that is not as good as those first couple of bites.
Interesting.
Yeah, so, and again, that comes with being more mindful. So slowing down and taking your time.
Yeah, it sounds like that's good advice for every aspect of our life.
Exactly.
Yeah. And especially, you know, about being distracted and all. So, what would be a good regimen that we can try to bring into our home life? Yeah.
Well, in terms of eating healthy, number one, you want to tell your friends, tell your family, your spouse or partner what you want to do. So if you want to begin a new journey, whether it is weight loss or just eating better, you want to get them on board, okay? Because it's really hard to just have one person in your family starting a new eating regimen. You know, you want to explain to them what it is that you're doing.
So they'll be like your ally.
Right, because it's nice to have that support system or that buddy that's going to come work out with you and keep you on your toes and encourage you to continue.
Well, that's really good information, and all the information you've given us is, I mean, there's so much more that we'd love to get, but this has really been really wonderful. And so, if somebody wants more information, how would they be able to get that? Like, can you give your website?
Sure. So they can just go on to giantfood.com. They can click on Live Well, and my information will be there. So I'm at the Rockville Giant as well, so they can find me there too.
Okay, that's great. Well, That's really wonderful. And let me just ask you, if you want to just sneak a treat, what do you go for? What's your little sneaky treat?
Yeah, well, every indulgence is fine, and treats are certainly fine to have in moderation every now and then. But my indulgence, my go-to is definitely chocolate.
Yeah.
So, and when I do eat chocolate, I enjoy it, and I don't feel guilty about it. And neither should you. It should be totally fine to indulge once in a while.
Yeah, well, you've really made that clear that we can really eat everything, but we have to just make the right choices.
Exactly.
And so I thank you so much, Nina, for being my guest today.
Thank you for inviting me.
You've really opened up my eyes, and I'm sure in the audience's eyes, about all this important information, and it's such a big part of our life, food and eating.
Exactly.
So I thank you so much, and we're going to continue. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to continue after the break with my Good to Know segment. So stay tuned. I'm Nina Berry, your host of Happy and Healthy.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
Hi, welcome. I'm Nina Berry, host of Happy and Healthy. And now I'm going to share with you what's good to know. And today I'm going to give you a happiness tip. It's called micromastering. And you may say, well, what's that? Well, it's a relatively new term for something as a life coach that we know very well, that if you're learning and stretching yourself continuously through life, that you'll have a happier life. And you may say, oh, well, I'm too busy. I don't have time to really learn something and master something. But, this is where the term micro comes in, because you could just learn a very simple little skill, a tiny skill. Like it could be maybe making the perfect omelet, maybe growing a bonsai tree, maybe even perfecting parallel parking. Just by doing those small little things, then mastering them, it'll really add to your self-esteem and really add to your feelings of happiness. And so, you may say, well, I learn something new every day on the job or whatever, but really, when you go to work at the same place every day, and maybe you meet with the same friends every day, maybe you even watch the same shows every day, like how much are you really learning? So I challenge you to really master something, like even a tiny little thing, a micro thing, and let me know how that goes for you. So, and you can email me at happyandhealthytv@gmail.com. I'm Nina Berry, the happiness coach and host of Happy and Healthy. Have a happy day.